Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and today we're looking at Battle Chef Brigade. This is a 2017 game from Trinket Studios, I believe is the name of the company. It's their first game, although there is kind of this interesting, sad story that Trinket Studios is made up of former employees who used to work for a company called Wide Load Games that made about 3 games that aren't worth mentioning. Before they got acquired by Disney, then eventually shut down by Disney once Disney decided they didn't want to be in the video game industry. And Wide Load Studios was made up of some of the former employees who worked on Halo Combat Evolved and left, I guess that was Bungie at the time, before right after Microsoft acquired Bungie. So in a funny way, to put an opinion on it, it's kind of like the people who made a bad choice when they left Bungie because they didn't want to work with Microsoft, which in all fairness, in that acquisition, I could see how it would have been really scary to go from Bungie to working with Microsoft. Microsoft is pretty notorious for being kind of a hard place to work. But then they got acquired by Disney, and then they got shut down, and they probably didn't see that coming either. And I'm not sure that many of the employees really had any say on whether or not Wide Load Studios got acquired. But they certainly, in a short time, failed to establish themselves with any other games. And this kind of feels like it is the breakout hit for this team, although in all actuality, and this is probably true for a lot of artists, they've probably been working in the industry for 10 to 15, maybe even 20 years. The other elephant in the room is that there is an anime where it is very much focused around cooking and cooking food that is so good that it leads the food tasters to delusions of being pure angel cherubs, and thus they're floating around in just their birthday suits in pure ecstasy. That is clearly an influence here. We've been playing the Shantae series from Way Forward, which clearly was also influenced in part by the Japanese anime series, and this is a half Tetris style game, half platformer game, and I think that's about as much as we need to set up so we can just jump into it. It's very pretty. So first choice here, the fact that there is daily cook-offs and local multiplayer and challenges probably leads me to the perspective that I won't be getting all the achievements, and I probably wouldn't want to grind for it anyways. So I'm going to go with normal. Into the proving tournament, ready to learn the arts of cooking and hunting. So there's 2 phases to this game. One is a hunting phase, one is a cooking phase. I'm sure we'll hit a tutorial pretty quickly. Opponents make better dishes, monsters are tougher, and hunts are timed if you play in hard mode. And I guess spoons are easier than forks, although not really. Depending on what you're eating, it's a lot harder to eat soup with a fork than it is a spoon. So that's an interesting label.
Monsters raged across Victusia. They destroyed farms, decimated the dwindling animal population, and attacked our people on sight. Famine and death swept the land. No one had dared to hunt and cook monsters for centuries, fearing their cursed flesh. It was then that King Heinrich and Chef Robichaud delivered Victusia from the brink of extinction. Together, they built the finest culinary institution this world has ever seen, the Battle Chef Brigade, a legion of elite soldier chefs on the frontier of the culinary world. Now, battle chefs across the land stand as our protectors and providers.
So these are probably all going to be people you have to battle.
To table. As summer begins, so does our tournament, drawing forth the next generation of culinary warriors. What new styles of cooking will we witness this year? What tantalizing dishes will be revealed? This year's tournament is sure to be our fiercest yet.
And of course, there's definitely some influence here from the cooking show that was popular in Japan and then got an American version and probably many international versions made of it. I want to call it Battle Chef, but I'm not sure if that's actually the name. Very brown image there. Nicely drawn, but bad color palette, I would say.
I'm off to the market.
So we're going to get a story told to us, but also seemingly voiced either in part or in whole. There was an option to turn up the size of the text. Let's see if we can turn that up. It didn't seem like that was going to need to happen, but let's see.
Don't buy the blue squiggle again. It tasted spoiled last time.
So you can see in the lower left hand corner there is a wok effectively, and you're cooking ingredients, and the ingredients give you one of 4 elemental elements, and then when you merge them together that increases, I believe, the value of your dish.
I'll ask the Brigadiers about it. Where's Saskia?
We have Win and we have Lily, who are probably the parents, and you have in the background what looks like a fairly modern society and world, more Asian, but by the looks of it, it definitely looks like kind of a Japanese Asian type world, with the symbol on the door and a window that perhaps they're serving food out of. So it may be both a house and a restaurant, or this may just be a restaurant.
Trying to wake Mina up.
This is, I would say though, a very Western style of animating the characters. You definitely aren't seeing what has been the overwhelmingly prevalent animation style in Japan for the past decade, the moe style, in which characters are just anatomically inaccurate completely in the fact that they're shorter, they look much younger than they are, they don't really equate at all to what a real human is. This is a very Western style, although I'd say it's kind of its own unique style. I wouldn't say I've seen a ton of things animated like this. It kind of looks a little pencil sketchy. It's got some impolished lines, and there's no thick black outline like you would see in a Western comic book. But you can also see that these characters are tall, they look like humans, that they still may be a little too young when it comes down to it once we see what seems to be 2 siblings.
She just keeps saying 10 more minutes.
Here we have Saskia. So either she's the older sister or she's an employee.
Mina, get down here now.
And if she's yelling through the window like that, then there is just a breakfast bar in this house. Which, I don't know why you'd have curtains over a breakfast bar, but okay.
Saskia, let's go. We're already late.
Mina, if you don't come down this instant.
This is one of those instances where we could easily spend an extra 10-20 minutes just going through the story.
I'm up.
And
Stop yelling.
at a certain point, it might just be easier if the game forced you to go forward and potentially miss a single line of dialogue. This is probably an issue that visual novels should address at some point if they ever want to become more mainstream. Is just the idea of being fully voiced and just always moving forward like reality happens. The Telltale games certainly tried to do a lot of that, where it's just like you can just stay silent and not hit a button and the story will just keep going forward.
Is the restaurant on fire or something?
So here's our main character, Mina, in a blue kind of like chef's coat with a yellow bandana and red gym piece.
You know it's busiest on Fridays. Finish that Karano Mabo Tofu order for table 2.
So apparently they are on the restaurant side of a restaurant and a house. And she was in the house side of the restaurant house. Which I'm sure not a lot of people relate to that. But okay, that makes sense. But then when you look at the image here, you have like garbage on the restaurant side that you could have easily just hidden in the back kitchen. You have the whole kitchen cooking part seeming to be done out and proud, which some of that certainly is done, but you also have like a prep station in the back there that kind of you wouldn't want done. So the whole place looks oddly architecturally designed. I'm also noticing that there's an issue here with the circular elements. The greens, there are some greens with crystals, and there are some greens with just circles around them. And then there's a blue with a circle around it, and then there's blues with swishing water. So there must be some different levels here. There's also reds with circles around them in the middle, and then flaming reds.
Alright.
And one assumes that Mina is just a younger person, so she, at best, you put her in the age of maybe being a college age. Run to the table with the left thumbstick, press Y to open the pantry. Add the ingredients. So you press A, and then you're Tetrising here, and it seems to me what's going to happen is you can't rotate anything, because if I could rotate things, probably would want to, but I guess not. So that merges the 3 greens, and then that merges the 3 greens.
Ingredients taste a bit off to me.
And so now it's a 60 value food.
A couple of things we got from the market were strange. Not sure what's going on. 1 bao run noodle soup.
So I could see how I could drop the ball horribly on this game if we get to a point where we have to cook specific dishes, and the specific dishes have like very, very specific requirements of their elemental energy in them.
On it.
But I'm not sure we're actually going to hit that, or if it is just going to be like a straight Tetris game. There's a big difference between, for instance, having to just continue playing Tetris and not dying versus knowing exactly what you're doing in Tetris. Right, so in this case, it would be a matter of, do I want to play this way or that way? There are some questions here. As far as, they want the squeakle tentacle. Okay. Out of the pantry, which is just your inventory. And I think if I place it here and then hit A, then the blues, I would have thought would have merged. Oh, you have to hit X to cook it now. And then it wants you to move the right stick to stir. Okay. Alright, I see how this is gonna work. And let's see, is there a way to get that all over there? Seems like you can just kind of merge everything until you get your first match. Interesting. Wonder why it stops there though. Oh, because you can't match multiple levels. Alright, I'm seeing the trick here. So that is definitely a different experience than Tetris. It's keeping you in a much smaller area, and I imagine this little zones won't get too big. And now we're gonna serve it by holding A.
You stayed up training for the brigade again, didn't you?
There is definitely a core flaw in the idea of hunting monsters for food. Unless monsters magically spawn and they don't follow the normal livestock breeding patterns, you would just definitely want to move to ranching at a certain point with the monsters, and just, regardless of how dangerous a monster is, have them controlling their breeding, controlling where they eat, what they ate, how big they got, controlling their health and things like that, so that you get a very consistent yield from those animals when you finally do slaughter them. If you look in the real world, we ranch cows, particularly. A lot of people in the West ranch cows, and cows and bulls are fairly dangerous creatures. We ride horses, and on the rare occasion people eat horse meat, whether they know it or not, and they're fairly large and dangerous animals. We don't ranch too many tigers or lions or elephants, but in Africa, hunting elephants still may occasionally happen, or it did in the past at least, and that was a way of getting meat.
It was Saskia's idea.
I suppose it was Saskia's idea the last 10 times too.
So we're trying to get to the story, but they're also trying to tutorialize us, and this is really slow.
We need you here.
And part of it is me stopping and commenting, but we're getting a very basic.
And your sister isn't even married.
So Saskia is the older sister, I guess.
Aw, please.
I just saw Simon outside. Go gather some fresh ingredients. He looks like he's in the mood for something off menu. I can always tell by how much he's slouching.
So I wonder if in a society like this you're allowed to just go hunt monsters yourself, or if you need a permit or something.
A 50-point dish should do.
So they're just naming the dishes by points. Interesting. Excuse me. Here you have a very Asian thing of the shoes at the front door, but then she's wearing house shoes and she's about to run to the backyard, so they just ignore that. So any real let's see, the right trigger, and we'll pick up some food. So the monsters seem to be fairly prevalent in the sense that they don't stay in forests or anything like that. Interesting, we have a Y attack. And I got 6 ingredients. And so I'm probably not getting any experience for beating up anybody. So here you have the 2 game though. 2 elements of the game is that you are running and doing beat 'em up actions, which for a 2017 game you're seeing a decent amount of polish here. Interesting. And there's nothing really stopping you from going and getting more. Like the amount of health I have is seemingly very high. So I don't think I was really taking any dishes. That may have also just been some easy moves there. So let's see, we have 3 of these, the chi horns, which seem to be high quality. But then these are better. So what we would want to do is this, and you can't mix them at the start. You can mix them later. So I'm just gonna do this all around. And so just all the same thing is what I want to do. I don't think I can do anything more. Like I could try this. Right. So now I'm going to try and cook this, and I'm going to stir this as much as possible. Cook, and then I'm using the wrong thing. That's what the problem is. And then interesting. And now let's throw in some more food, I guess. And yeah, you clearly would have needed more ingredients than what I got there. Alright. And here we go. And here that. So I need to work on moving as much as possible, down as much as possible. And I guess it might be a case that there's really only so much you can do. So that's like a 76 dish. Let's just keep on going.
Okay, that's enough tweaking. My stomach can't handle another 5-flavored cheap cheetah debacle.
That was one time.
So yeah, let's just keep on adding food while we've got it, because this probably is just a tutorial, and this probably would be a great place to get a little extra if you were just going for extra, or if there's like an achievement around that idea. I kind of feel like the controllers here are a little weird though. Like, they do seem like kind of an odd choice. Let's see. And at a certain point, you might just be out of room. Yeah. I don't think there's anything more I can do. Because this is really going on that same idea of 2048, where as you get more and more combinations, the odds are low that you're going to actually be able to succeed and continue playing. So here, we gave him 144, and we're serving it to him. He wanted a 50.
Hey, Mina, Got a new experiment for me to try?
And see, it just looks like it's random art as far as what you're actually cooking, and that's fine. That makes it very globally acceptable for the most part.
You bet. Only the finest from our backyard. Dig in.
Now, if you could go in your backyard and get a very nutritious, easy to cook meal just by beating on a bunch of plants and bird monsters, it would definitely change how societies worked quite a bit. The fact is that for the most of all of humanity's history, the amount of calories put into creating more calories to eat were in the opposite direction than one would like. So you would spend over 2,000 calories of man hours, but split amongst perhaps quite a lot of people, to grow less than 2,000 calories worth of food. Eventually, what we were able to do is get very lucky, and thus the society was able to survive by foraging for berries, which did not originally, at least, require any calories or man hours of to grow, because the berries were growing naturally. Foraging for other kinds of fruits and plants, same thing. Or we would get lucky on occasion and get the leftovers from an animal kill, or a just animal that died of some other cause. But then eventually we industrialized, and eventually we got to the point where we knew agriculture well enough, or we invented agriculture well enough, that the amount of calories one human can grow is massive. Although, in all fairness, we've turned a fair blind eye to effects of the rest of the economy by turning large swaths of land into farms where once were trees, and how that might affect the environment in general and the ozone layer.
It's horrible. Oh, blah.
See, now I don't know why he says it's horrible. That makes me worried that the score system may go up really, really high.
What? That can't be. I tasted it myself.
Oh, he's joking.
Nah, it's actually good. But I have to keep your ego in check.
The background music here is repeating a little too much,
Don't scare me like that.
considering I'm taking my sweet time.
Oh, Simon, it looks like we'll need some extra satchels of grain and flour. We're running through it a lot faster than expected.
Compared to the Shantae games, and I won't say that these two games are directly comparable, because it is clearly a different type of gameplay for at least half of it.
Mina, go over to Simon so he doesn't
This
have to
is
make a double trip.
a really slow intro.
I really don't mind. I live so close
And
by.
even the Shantae game I last played was fairly slow with all the dialogue.
Hush.
But
I'll go.
yeah, I really wish they had thrown me into
Give
more
this money
action
to his father
faster.
when you get there.
Thank you, Mrs. Han.
Now I'm hoping, and I
back in
think
a
we'll
flash.
probably get to a point where there's very little story, and it is just going to be
Simon, wait.
section 1 of the tournament, then round 2 of the tournament. Now you can see that apparently they're out in the rural areas, and maybe we're going to get a anime style confession of love.
What's up?
And Simon seems to be fairly plainly dressed compared to our main character.
I'm not going to be around for a while.
Oh, so she's gonna run away and join the brigade.
Did you get grounded for brigade training again?
This isn't a joke. I'm finally going to do it. I'm going to run away from home.
Well, if you're gonna set up that she's gonna run away from home as just a story element, why establish this with having your family seem to be decent people, and establish that she has connections with someone in her area, her neighborhood? If she was going to run away from home, why not just have her walking on the side of the road and her just narrating, like, "Hi, my name is this, and I finally decided to run away from home. I'm going to join the brigade, the Battle Chef Brigade, and then you have her just talk until whatever pertinent small amount of information she needs to say, and then as she's walking through a forest, it'll get darker. She'll say, I should set up camp and have something to eat. Then you have the tutorial where she just cooks herself some food with the same requirement. And then you have her the next day make it through the forest and into the Chef's Brigade. And almost certainly what you would want to do in this fictional starting section, you would want her to run into a very big, dangerous looking monster and survive, and then just barely survive and make it to the wherever the Battle Chef Brigade is going to be, and then that should be her ticket to her being allowed to join, is that she has like this story behind her that makes her seem more capable than the average person.
Mina, I think you're way too old for that now.
I'm not throwing a tantrum. Mom and Dad will never let me leave for the brigade. If I wait for their permission, I'll be stuck cooking the same recipes for the same people forever.
Well, almost certainly as a cook, you might end up doing that regardless.
That's not necessarily true. You could change up the menu.
When I make it in, I'll get to travel the land and learn about everything in the world of food.
And see, the thing that was weird about the conversation with the main character and her mom is that she said they're going to need the younger sister to stay and run the restaurant because the older sister isn't even married yet. So they seem to have oddly split expectations on the sister, and I'm not saying parents don't do that, they do it all the time, but it does seem like they're either pushing the older sister to get married because she's like maybe incompetent in cooking, and they're pushing the younger sister to stay and take care of them and take care of the restaurant. Perhaps the implication was supposed to be that the older sister was engaged, and maybe this is one of those old school engagements that goes on for 5 years before it actually happens, and that like the parents arranged it. That could be very Japanese style of things, although I don't think the Japanese do that too much anymore.
That's more than I could ever do here.
It could be foreshadowing that at a certain point we will end up being like a masked chef that nobody recognizes and nobody can see her face, so she cooks in secret, and then she ends up cooking at the wedding of her own sister after becoming famous as the masked chef.
You're serious then?
Of course, all of that would be more of an anime story concept more than anything that would really serve this game, because I think this game is going to be best served to just have enough puzzles to keep people entertained and move forward through puzzles fairly quickly.
Dead serious. I've got what it takes, and I'm not growing enough around here where everyone's happy just doing the same old stuff.
And see, the question here is, why is this guy, if she's willing to confide in him, why is it not being taken to the next step? Why is she not asking him to run away with her? I guess they're just best friends.
Well,
Your mom is gonna flip. And the only person who scares me more than my dad is your mom. Couldn't you wait till the restaurant picks back up a bit? It hasn't been doing so great lately.
And an interesting comparison here to the Shantae games is just how they've decided to animate these characters in these scenes and how many different poses they've created. The Shantae game zooms right in on the characters when they were talking and put the text. A lot bigger than this is, even in large mode. But the focus on the background was non-existent in the Shantae games. In all fairness, in the Shantae games, you're often looking at a scantily clad belly dancer, half genie. That's the main character. But they definitely, in the Shantae games, also spent a lot of time to draw 4, 5, 6 different poses, and all were drawn so lovingly and so visually polished. Where here, the focus seems to be kind of all over the place, because you have just this soft, like, colored pencil sketch background that is taking up, I'd say, somewhere around 80% of the screen, just to establish an environment for really no reason. Like, I can't tell you if the yellow in the back is supposed to be fields of dead grass, or if that's supposed to be fields of wheat, or if it's just supposed to be a creature, a plant I don't even recognize. I kind of am assuming that the building in the back left is the restaurant, and there's like only one tree and one outhouse in the back, and then there's just nothing anywhere around there, so why would there even be a restaurant that far away from everything else? And the road is clearly not very smooth, just a dirt road. I really would have focused on these characters a lot more and zoomed them in, even if they were gonna, so that they took at least half of the screen up.
Plenty of new travelers will be passing through on their way to the proving tournament.
So
Fine.
what we want to see is how many different poses does the guy go through. He has a hand up and a hand down, and how many poses does the main character go through. She has a holding her side, smiling, foot forward pose, or maybe a shy pose. I think I might call it a shy pose.
You don't own a coin your parents haven't given you first. How are you gonna...
So now his hand's up again. Is that the exact same pose with the big goofy smile?
Mina, Han, you rogue. Now I'm gonna be an accomplice.
Now he has his arm behind his neck.
I knew I could
And see,
count on you. This money is just enough to apply, and a bit extra.
it's really just going to be a popping to from one pose to another, which that's not a bad way to do it. So she now has a smirk in her hand to her chin, and apparently she's either taken money from him or yeah, I guess that's the idea.
Think you could help a neighbor out and spot me some flour?
I don't like this. But how can I refuse my favorite neighbor?
And see, now he's got a sweating animation, which is slightly different.
Thank you, Simon.
Now she has kind of like a pouting animation or pose. They really are just cycling through random poses. None of them really apply greatly.
God of barley, give me strength. Your mom is gonna kill me.
And see, now he has just like an animation on his face of sadness.
I'll name a dish after you in the tournament.
So yeah, unless you just smash the button, apparently there's going to be a date system.
Before I go, how about one more practice, hey Kiki?
So now she also told the sister the next day. Like, I don't know why we needed a day animation and to move the next day.
Sure. Why don't we practice with wind magic one last time?
And see, this is a character named Saskia, which she just gave a nickname to Kiki, and that just is going to confuse the issue a little bit.
Alright. We should have some time before Ma gets back from Auntie's house.
I can't believe our little Mimi is all grown up.
Yeah, I feel like
It's really
even if you were just really trying to smash the A button, you're going to take a while. Ready, Kiki. So maybe Kiki is better at the fighting part. Although she has an apron, so she probably can cook too. So I don't know why the younger sister has to stay and help. Does this restaurant that basically serves one person a day, but by the seems of it, does that really benefit by having two people running the place? Throw your daggers. Press Y and watch the knives fly. Practice on the Karana. I guess it's supposed to be piranha with a C. Okay. Nice shot. Now take a step forward and use up and wide for a whirlwind. Just beautiful. If Mom could see that. She better not be under kitchen arrest for the whole summer. It's too bad she doesn't practice battling anymore. I feel like the bird ate that and turned it into an egg, which gives you different food, which there might be a whole system here that you'll have to learn about. Do you want to eat, pick up food, or do you want to leave it? Well, if it weren't for her and Pa starting up this restaurant, you wouldn't have a chance in the proving tournament. Get a few more ingredients while you're out there. Can't let you leave me all the work. So, we have eggs. And whirlwind. It's just... Alright, so let's see if that bird will pick that up. And then we'll... Yeah, the birds eat it. Interesting. And then we'll get that, and we have a berry. Will the bird eat the berry and lay a different kind of egg? No. Alright. Let's just talk to her and not goof around.
Before I forget, did you pack enough underwear?
Yeah, she has an apron on. One assumes she knows how to cook. It seems like the mother knows how to cook.
What? I think so.
Yeah. If this was a Japanese game written by a Japanese person, this dialogue would play a lot better. Instead, it feels like it's trying to be written like what somebody who doesn't fully understand anime thinks anime dialogue is, and not in a way that it's like a parody or anything. Just kind of like badly parodied.
Remember, I gave you some of Dad's stationery. I want you to write every week.
And there's a lot of just dialogue here that doesn't really matter.
Stop acting like Mom.
And you could have had these, particularly if we're going to have letters going back and forth, you could have had these conversations later or in flashbacks.
Well, I'll have plenty of underwear and stationery with me in that ditch.
Yeah. See, and typically in a Japanese game, when you have a weird conversation about did you pack enough underwear or something like that, there's probably a Japanese pun or joke or just a different way that the character is voiced in the original Japanese language that makes that make a lot more sense, or there's perhaps a inappropriateness there or a cultural element there that is just almost impossible to translate to the English-speaking world. But you don't have any of those excuses to lean on when you know that this is a Western developer that kickstarted this and had Western, well, worldwide, but probably mostly Western funders make the game. And then clearly they're missing out on some elements of Japanese society that would be unacceptable, in the sense that she's wearing house shoes in the house and she's just going in and out. But on the other hand, there have been Japanese games where you literally have to sit through a 20-second load screen animation showing the character remove and put on their shoes over and over again.
All right, we better get going.
Thanks, Kiki. You have no idea what this opportunity means to me.
Oh, I know. Don't screw up. And here, take this cookie jar with you. A little reminder of home.
See, I don't know if there's a danger here of this game being extremely short, in the fact that it's been 45 minutes to get to this point. Smell of cookies is permanently baked into the jar, plus 2 health. So we have an inventory loadout screen, so they're trying to be more complicated, and in fairness to the Shantae comparison, Shantae did not really have a loadout screen where you changed your equipment. So we could get 1 satchel slot, or we could get +1 mana, or +1 health, or we could match 3 with our current dull pan, so at some point you can probably match 4 with a better pan. So you want to equip the Wolson plushie with Saskia's cookie jar. Then we've got a load screen in a game that really shouldn't have a load screen. I also want to point out that even though this game was highly promoted by most of the mainstream video game media, I don't know if it really sold that well, because fairly quickly it was a Amazon Prime, Twitch Prime free game.
Right on Kiki's cloak. I have to get this back, you know.
See, that's another thing that probably would be a lot funnier later on when we actually have more of a relation to Mina. But at the moment, we're still just getting to know her. And it just seems like this is kind of just a joke for a joke's sake. And yeah, I don't get the timing on that at all. And I don't get the idea of doing that at all. Frankly, also when you're talking about a cooking game, because at a certain point, I think a lot of people playing this game will have a culinary mindset and love. And so the idea of thinking about bird poop is not something you would want to be reminded of in a cooking game.
They say it's good luck for that to happen when you first come into town.
Yeah, and you don't really need that for this first introduction conversation. And if you look to the left, it seems like we've got a weird combination of outfits. The girl in the far left seems to have very modern looking clothes like from the 80s or 90s, and then everybody else to the right of that seems like they're set in, I would say, feudal times of the 1700s. So seems to be an inconsistent art style here that will have to be explained somehow. It's a little unbelievable that one city would be hyper modern and every other city would be hundreds of years behind.
Huh? That's gross. Who says that?
They're right, it's gross. So why did they put it in the game just to introduce these two characters?
It's a capital thing. I'm Thrash, by the way. You're looking to register for the tournament, aren't you?
Oh, yes. I'm Mina. Nice to meet you.
So yeah, just there you have like 5 sentences of dialogue before you can just get to the point, and the game is definitely suffering from getting to a point, which then I'm magnifying, and I'll fully point that out by commenting on the fact that it's not getting to the point.
How'd you know I was here for the tourney?
So the fear is that they're going to just try and stretch us out with bad visual novel style writing.
That's
instead of just letting us
son.
get to the
And you've got a pan sticking out of the back of your satchel.
instead of just letting you play the game. And in puzzle games in particular, if there is a kind of weak system, or if you have to handcraft each of the puzzles, many times you'll find the game developers don't put in the effort or the time for that, and many times it doesn't matter if the game creator created 100 puzzles or 1,000 or 1,000,000, because the game will sell just the same. Which is to get back to the thought that I don't think this game really sold. Like, I've probably gotten this game 2 or 3 times for free. I think I got it for free as a Twitch Prime, Amazon Prime Gaming free giveaway, and didn't play it because I don't want to play a game having to use that launcher. I think I got it for free at the Epic Game Store as a free giveaway, and same answer there. Didn't play it because I don't want to launch something out of that launcher. And finally I just decided to actually buy it, and so I'm clearly a sucker 2 times over, because I think I bought it on sale, but I still end up buying it a couple of years after the fact. And since this is a 2017 game and I'm playing this in 2020, there's maybe 3 more years before the developers of this game need to either announce that they're working on something or announce that they're out of business, because they really just can't make one game and live off the profits of that forever. Well, you can do that, but you can't have employees if you do that.
Right.
And we'll have to see
You can sense a special aura
how
burning with excitement.
how much of room there is for like a sequel to this kind of game. And it would be an interesting thought experiment to see if, do you take the gameplay mechanic and shift it into an entirely different world with an entirely different story, or do you stick with the cooking and the fighting and try to expand it in from what it is into something more? I think you keep the gameplay mechanic. I don't think you can get rid of that, but you could certainly just make a direct sequel to this game, or you could, instead of cooking, be forging metal weapons and armor in a blacksmith place.
Look at me getting all worked up. Anyway, this is the back of the line. Up there with the pink-haired woman is where we register.
Don't see a pink-haired woman, so referencing her is not great. I would have panned if that was important. And they may eventually do that.
Wow.
There is a puzzle
That's a
game
lot of
called
contestants.
10,000, and the creator then made a spiritual successor called You Must Build a Boat. And the gameplay mechanic is almost exactly the same, but in one you're trying to escape a dungeon by doing puzzles, and then the other you're trying to build a boat to escape an area or just go down a river. I'm not sure if you actually were escaping anything and You Must Build a Boat. So I could see doing something like that with this game.
This isn't even the half of it. I hear there's somewhere around 50 hopefuls.
If it's a full-on tournament, which probably wouldn't be, 50 can get split by 2 every tier. So 2 to the power of 5 would be like 32. So yeah, 2 to the power of 6 is 64. So 6 tiers potentially, in which you would have to fight one battle and win to get rid of about 50 people, 64 people. But I imagine most video games would not work that way, and you would end up, if they're going to say 50 hopefuls, they're going to end up giving you 50 challenges and 50 puzzles. For a game like that, this might be alright.
That's so awesome. But this line, yeesh. Just walked 30 miles and I don't have the energy for this.
I don't know why they wouldn't be sitting on the bench if they're at the back of the line.
Well, you can cut in front of me if you like.
Let's see. That's not going to help much.
Really? You're so kind. Thanks.
So, is he pulling some kind of trick? So, alright. Now we've shifted a little bit to the left. And are we going to just have a dialogue where we talk with each of these characters and they let us cut forward? You know what this is probably going to be, though, is she's going to be the last contestant let in, and he's going to be left out and be very upset about it and become your potential rival, although not your true rival. But yeah, up to the big lady who looks like she's kind of in a Scandinavian outfit. It all seems kind of connected in the outfits, and then you see the lady on the left, and she looks kind of like April O'Neil, the way she was in the comics, I think. Although I don't know if April O'Neil ever had a big yellow jacket. And then you have a kind of ninja guy on the left, and then you have a lady sitting on a giant robot. So this does feel like they're just doing another thing that I think people who want to appeal to anime fans often do, in which they're just potentially trying to merge in several different genres, like robot mecha anime stories and ninja stories tend not to combine. I'd say the lady sitting on the robot looks like she might even be like a particularly powerful magic user. And then the guy in the white coat definitely looks like he is a punk gangster from a Japanese story, which would be more of a beat-em-up show. Like, and you just can't mix all those genres. Maybe you can get two genres in an anime story to merge together and make sense. And clearly the guy, the green monster on the right, is kind of a fantasy genre.
Okay, this isn't gonna do. Time for some Mina magic.
Yeah, it would be easiest here to just fade to black and say several hours later. And then show her determination that way instead of having her potentially do something unethical and cheat.
Huh?
I'll see you around. Gotta go.
So she turned herself into an old lady. So does everybody have magic in this world? And if everybody does have magic, then would anybody be tricked by her magic?
Excuse me. Pardon me.
So maybe this isn't so much magic as she's just made herself to look like an old lady.
Just trying to get through.
Let's see.
There we go.
So yeah, I don't know if that was real magic or not. And then we have some really professional medieval people at the registration desk with the Battle Chef Brigade emblem. There was a problem with that story in the past about the king and the head chef fighting together to create a culinary institute. Feels like more the king would either be fighting with his men and so desperate in the battle against the monsters that they have the head chef fight too, or the chef is so impressive with his knife skills they have him fight too, and then by accident they realize they can actually eat the monster meat. There definitely feels like there should have been more to that backstory than all this pointless dialogue we've seen that has happened instead. I think it's also worth mentioning that when I first launched this game I didn't show it. There is a good minute and a half highly polished anime style intro video that played to get you hyped, but it's hard to be hyped and then an hour later still be stuck at registration.
Next. Hey, she cut.
Hi, I'm here for the...
It'll be 10 gold to register.
Yes, I have that. Here you go.
Take this form and fill it out. Hand it to the gentleman to my right. Next.
Mina Han, age 21.
So,
The Windy
is that a
Village.
lie? Is her age actually 21? I assume that's what the story is going to be and that she's going to stick to it. It definitely paints a different picture of the idea of she's running away from home.
Title.
Hmm.
Let's see. Well, Simon always calls me the Iron Stomach since I can eat anything. Done.
So she calls herself Iron Stomach.
Here is your registration number. Don't lose it. If you do, tough bricks. Tomorrow, your orientation is at 6 a.m. and the opening ceremony is at 4 p.m.
So I wonder if I have to show up at specific places at specific times. We know in the hard mode some things were timed, but if there's a possibility you just miss opening orientation or the opening ceremony, you lose the game, that would be weird. Even when you have like life sim, dating sim visual novels, they tend not to make you move around in a real-time manner with a real-time clock moving at all time. probably at an accelerated pace. It would also be extremely weird if I actually had to play this game exactly at 6 a.m. to show up at orientation.
6 a.m.? I better go find a place to stay and rest up.
Alright, so we need to get a room at the inn, and we seem to have no prompt. Now, this is an interesting pose that somebody decided to animate. Like, in comparison to the Shantae games, which love to draw and focus on the cleavage and the stomachs of all the characters and the legs of the characters somewhat too, there's only like one specific pose I saw in the last Shantae game I played, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, where it actually even showed the behind, and that might be more of just a fetish of the two different animators. But I would say this pose is kind of a very pointless pose to make. You're never going to be able to really use this. So you had an animator probably spend several hours to not show the hair, the back of the head, anything really of the character other than the back of their heels, the back of their thighs, the back of their legs, their butt covered in clothes, not even particularly appealing clothes. It's not even a recognizable human form if you were to just flash on this image. I don't see a real point to that. Whereas if you wanted and you just had to animate a specific petting the cat image, why not have her actually sit on the bench, or maybe that's not a bench behind him, or sit on the ground and pet the cat, or just be to the side facing the camera. Like, I would never have somebody animate a character facing away from the camera unless there was a real purpose. And in a Japanese style of animation of this, let's say she was one of the Yakuza females that show up in a lot of games, and she's showing off a giant snake tattoo on her back. In any of the many times that has been animated in games, what do? They always have the character facing to the left or right, so you can see half of their face in profile at least. You have a big focus on the hair. You have a big focus on usually a decent dress and an appealing angle and form. This is just like really terrible composition. Like, at the very least, this pose makes sense. You can see that's a human there, but unless there was a symbol on her back, like a logo for her house as a restaurant, I don't see a point there. Wow, this looks like a whole store is cat themed. I'll have to check this out later. So there might be a whole cat theme element to the game. Also, take note that they have dropped talking, so it's not fully voiced. But yeah, ideally you'd want to bend down right here and pet the cat. That would be it. Yeah, see? You could have done that. Remove the knives from her hand, move one hand forward. That would have been a much easier animation. Let's see. Seems the music changed slightly. We can't go back. See, I don't know if this game autosaves or what.
How much per night?
2 gold a night, and we have complimentary breakfast here. My wife cooks up a storm.
So, you could have a story where the wife is sick and she has to cook, and thus she gets free lodging. You could have an instance where you get food or ingredients because of the breakfast being free. We also now know that 10 gold to enter the proving tournament is effectively 5 days at a inn, which in the inn looks fairly fancy too. This does not look like a hostel. But then you also have this weird point that we just walked into this building and it did not visually differentiate that this was the inside of a building. The sign, now that I look at it twice, is indicating that this is a front end, and that big thick blue bar is an indicator of what a door frame is. And then you can see there's like a pet bowl where I imagine a cat will show up, and then a lot of decoration stuff in the building, in kind of the lobby.
If you're here for the tournament, you can stay for the entirety of the competition for 20.
I wonder if we have to spend the I wonder if we have to hunt to get money, or perhaps hunt, cook, and sell the food to get money. 20 for the entirety of the tournament also indicates that the tournament lasts fairly long, because that would be at least 20 days.
Perfect. Although, that leaves me with nothing left. And what if I get eliminated early?
Yeah, that's the scam, of course, is you get eliminated early. Although it's not a terrible deal, honestly, because you can stay for the entirety of the tournament. Is what he said. Doesn't mean you have to be in the tournament. So you could stay for the full duration, try to pick up some odd jobs if you're eliminated from the tournament, or just take a nice little vacation before running back home with your tail between your legs.
No, I'm not gonna get kicked out. I can do this.
So I guess the indication there is that this is supposed to show her determination, and she's willing to gamble at all.
If you need to scrounge up some change, you could always do one of the jobs available in town.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
That'll do. Enjoy your stay.
It's always kind of weird to see someone say thank you and sir, and just the polite politeness elements that are almost never in video games, and frankly not really in the world anymore.
Oh, it's probably another saying.
In a funny way, I imagine a lot of the localization of Japanese games to English do remove a lot of the honorifics of Japanese, where it would sound very odd if you were extremely polite. There was definitely at least one anime where they intentionally wrote the character to be extremely polite, but then say extremely aggressive things to the character, because they didn't really understand the language. So they'd start every sentence with like please, and then go rot in hell, and then thank you. So that was an interesting combination of words.
Let me show you to your room.
Wow, this is really nice.
There's a lot of background image here, though. I don't think they spent the Kickstarter budget well on this, frankly. Like, even if this room does have a way of changing your inventory or something, I don't see a point of that. We already have an overlay menu for that. She very well may have just done better to have a campfire somewhere and set up camp every night. Something very simplistically drawn, whereas this seems like they just wanted to give some more money to the artist, so they had the artist draw a background image. And I feel like this happens a lot in Kickstarter games, is you have artists on board way too early in the development of a game. You have to give them something to do, so you have them draw these little soft pencil sketches, not final art type images that you can put up on the updates page of the Kickstarter to show you're actually doing work. And since that's nice and visual, people actually respond to that. Whereas if you were to just put up a text post saying, hey, we've made great progress on the gameplay mechanics and everything, that would be great. Even comparing the characters, though, to the background art, you can see there's a significant difference in the style in which it's animated. And it's a little off-putting.
We do our best. I'll let you get settled in. If you need anything, you know where to find me.
And then you also have a level of laziness in this also. You've wasted budget by animating this background in the first place, but then you weren't willing to put enough polish on it to show that the bed was made up when she first was let into the room. So the assumption here is that this is dirty sheets used by someone else, just being left here by a new tenant, because they're all disheveled, they're touching the ground, if that matters to people. Yeah, and that's then going to be slightly confusing with the flowers in the vase, because that indicates that somebody did probably come around and water the flowers, unless flowers just survive on their own fairly well, or they're fake flowers. And even like the stationery and the candle on the work desk in the lower right are fairly disheveled. And all of those images would make a lot of sense if she had been there one night, if she had been here a while.
Thank you, sir.
But does it really benefit the game for you to be here the whole time? Or are you going to eventually get upgraded to like a royal chamber, working out of a fort or a castle?
Maybe I'll just take a small...
Yeah, take a small nap on the dirty bed. That's the next day. And see, I think what we have to assume is when we hit a load screen there, that is where the game quick saves. And so I'm going to leave it here since it's been an hour and 11 minutes. And I will say only 40 minutes of that is my fault. This game is moving extremely slow. And I could certainly see it not getting a lot of promotion when you have a game like this that's extremely slow, and when you potentially have video game reviewers who only want to put in 2 hours of gameplay before writing a review. If you're not getting into the meat and the potatoes, perhaps literally in this case, of the game, it's very easy to just write it off as a visual novel. Yeah, if I hadn't played that tutorial cooking section, I would write this whole thing off as a visual novel and just assume that it's just going to keep on talking. It's just going to have us run around and talk to people. There might be a little bit of a odd jobs system where you have to take item A to person B and things like that. But yeah, this is slow, and I'll just leave it at that since we're just at the beginning. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.